What? What's going on, everybody? We got another episode of Miami Hurricanes Football After Dark. This is the last episode of our first year recording this show. Little reflection, man. It's been a great ride with my co-host Ross. Man, couldn't be more happier with the way this show is going. Thank you for everyone watching. Subscribe to the channel, guys. Many blessings to everyone and their loved ones. Moving forward in 2021, it can only get better, right? Ross, Miami Hurricanes end the 2020 season, losing to Oklahoma State 37-34 in the infamous Cheez-it Bowl game in Orlando, Florida. Where do we begin, man? It's a rocky road, very gloomy road towards this offseason. A lot of people shouting things. Our star quarterback has torn his ACL. A surgery is needed. Expected to be out 8 to 9 months at least.
This is a little messier going into the offseason than I was hoping, boys, honestly. I was really hoping that we'd get a win. Guys like King would put the team on their back. He'd, lo and behold, be the hero of the game, and we could, really show him our support for what he's done all season. But it just didn't happen, unfortunately. I want to give major props to N'Kosi Perry. I mean, him coming off the bench, playing like he did, showing confidence, showing some charisma, showing the ability to stand in the pocket and deliver passes. I was really proud of that guy, man. I don't know if we could have really asked for much of a better game from him besides the one little fumble mishap, but that could be between him and the offensive line. I'm not quite sure who that was on. And you know what? Honestly, here, before we get going into this too much further, guys, I actually have a special request shout out. We have a fan named Easy Canes. His son, Zach. He's a hell of a fisherman, I heard. He's a bass master, and he watches our show. And I wanted to give Zach a really special shout out and tell him thank you for tuning in, buddy. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Zach, man. Appreciate your support. We appreciate viewers like yourself, man. So thank you so much for watching us. Ross, we also have another very special guest with us, Max, all the way from the beautiful city of San Diego. Max, what are your thoughts about this game, man, losing to Oklahoma State to end the season?
I'm probably in the minority. I was actually pretty happy with the performance. Obviously wasn't happy with the first quarter, but I was happy with the way that we adjusted. It seemed like it was the first time defensively we really adjusted all year. And we finally put our playmakers in press man for like the entire rest of the game, which is something that I believe we should be doing all four quarters. We've got crazy athletes down to South Florida that play man-to-man in high school, and that's pretty much all that they play. So it was nice to see them do it. I loved seeing Takori be as physical as he was. I think we can all agree that most of those PIs, if not all of them, were not, they were phantom calls. Shouldn't have been called at all. And they missed the one with Brevin too. So to be honest, I thought we should have won that game. Obviously it sucks being in a hole down 21-0, but I think we played better than them 3 out of the 4 quarters.
Yeah.
So that's my kind of 2 cents on the game.
Yeah, and I think that's what really shot us in the foot. I mean, it's hard to win a football game when you're down 21-0 with 3 quarters left to play. And by all means, like, we had no answer for Oklahoma State. Their offense at all. Our defense had no answer whatsoever. We couldn't stop them. We made Sanders their quarterback. I mean, that first quarter, he looked like a Heisman Trophy candidate. He was putting on a show. We did stop their run game, which was going to be a key factor in this game. They do run the football heavily, even without their star running back, Chuba Hubbard, in the game. He did not play, but their other 2 running backs, they did average like 5.6, 5.7 yards per carry. So we did stop them. And like Max said, I think we did adjust very well, but it's just very hard, to win football games when you give up 37 points a game, when your wide receivers are dropping more than 6 passes and your star defensive ends are not playing. Your starting quarterback gets a tragic injury. Man, things just are not going Miami's way. I guess the question I have for you guys is, where do we go from here? Where do we go from this loss into the year 2021? There's a lot of players in the transfer portal to pick from. I know Samari Toure, out of Montana has been a hot name recently. He's a wide receiver. There's also Antoine, I believe, Shelton out of Penn State, defensive tackle. DeAndre Johnson, outside linebacker out of Tennessee. Also played defensive end as a freshman. Ross, I mean, where do we even start? Maybe the transfer portal was not the option to begin with.
I feel like that there is going to be a couple positions where the transfer portal might be really nice for us in terms of finding some guys that can play week one, some guys that are ready to play, ready to take as many snaps as they can get while we continue to develop guys behind them. I remember the success of KJ Osborne having a solid kind of almost a veteran presence from a college player and what it did for us. I mean, I know our offense wasn't great, but we saw how much of a safety blanket he could be on a variety of different routes and passes. I believe that kid from Montana has Power 5 type skills, and I believe we'd be foolish to not take a shot on him, honestly. He's going to be a damn good receiver, and he's going to prove it at the next level, I believe. To me, though, I'm keeping a really close eye on cornerback right now, especially in the transfer portal. I'm not sold completely on the guys we got right now. Who knows what's going to happen with guys like Al Blades? Who knows what's going to happen with Ivy? I'm not even 100% sure yet. More than likely, Ivy comes back. But Couch, those guys, I mean, I like Couch, but he still needs some work. I would like to see us bring in a veteran presence that's going to be ready to challenge these guys and battle with them, which should make the unit better as a whole.
Max, what are your thoughts?
I think the transfer portal is something, to me, it's something to use to get a veteran that maybe you don't have a young guy on the team that's ready to contribute as much as you'd want, like a Roche. But I also do think with this year specifically in the transfer portal, I think it's a great opportunity to get young guys that maybe you missed on that position in recruiting. From what I've heard, it's not really super public. We do have a silent commit at cornerback that is not yet in the portal.
Yes.
And so I think you had mentioned it the other day on one of your shows. But from what I've been told, we have that guy locked and loaded. I read earlier today that Likens either had a phone call or a FaceTime with Toure today or yesterday, one of the two. And I do believe that that's a position that we could use a counter on. Again, like Ross said, similar to a KJ Osborne situation. If Mike Harley does not come back, we have only youth to play at receiver next year. And that's because I don't trust specifically to improve. I think Pope is decent. He's had some good games for us this year. Drops have definitely been an issue, but Wiggins has been piss poor the entire season. He's had the one, every time we play Florida State, he has that long touchdown. But he doesn't fight for the ball. When the ball's underthrown, he doesn't come back for it. He just falls over and begs for a pass interference, when you're only going to get those pass interference calls if you fight for the ball.
Right.
And that's why I was pretty upset with one of the PIs against Takori Couch, because the receiver on the other team didn't even continue his route. The second there was any contact with Takori, he literally just stood still. So how are you going to give a guy a penalty for a guy that's not even trying to go for the ball, which ended up making the ball 20 yards downfield, which isn't catchable on top of it? So I think we definitely do need a senior in the portal at wide receiver. I would love to see just an injection of youth into our room next year. We've got all the talented freshmen this year, and we've got all the talented freshmen coming in next year. So I would like to see a 2 mixed with a Keyshawn, a Redding, Jacoby George, Brashard Smith, Romello Brinson. Those are the guys that I want getting playing time next season. I don't need to see Wiggins in the game. I can understand if they play Pope, but I don't see Wiggins getting meaningful playing time. He shouldn't, in my opinion. And Jeremiah Payton, in my opinion, just needs to figure it out. You want to be a ball player, not want to play. Because at this point, it's not a skill thing. It's an effort thing with that guy. And if he wants to play, he will. And if he doesn't, he's going to continue not to play.
Very well said. And why do we continue to play these guys? That's my question. Why?
That's a good question. I know they.
I don't get it.
Yeah, I know they. In one of the press conferences, they asked either Manny or Likens, and they said, "Well, the freshmen aren't ready yet." This was a couple of weeks ago, and yeah, I get it. Maybe the freshmen aren't ready yet, but neither are the juniors. So if the juniors aren't ready and they're not proving that they can catch the ball, it's not going to do any disservice to put the freshmen in. They're either going to do just as bad or they're going to be better.
Right. And that's interesting you said that, Max, that quote from the coaching staff, because Coach Stubblefield said the same thing last year, that Jeremiah Payton wasn't ready yet to play as a freshman. So I'm not really buying they're not ready yet kind of statement, because our own guys who are getting all the snaps, they're not ready either. They're not ready to play. So I just really think it's a revolving door. It's kind of like a Ferris wheel. Just goes around and round, and that's it. It's the same story, just a different year. And do you see the same thing, Ross, that it's the same kind of Ferris wheel, or maybe you see, hey, we can grow from this. We're 8-3. Let's keep pushing.
One of the Ferris wheel type things I'm seeing that does bother me a little bit, and I don't believe Manny Diaz when he says this at all, but he says there's no seniority on the team, and I just don't buy it, guys. I don't buy it at all. I don't buy it on any level, offense or defense, frankly. I know we've seen, some guys get in, a little more that are younger on the defensive side, but I mean, we're talking about guys that are part of a rotation. We're not talking about getting full starting snaps all the time. One of the things that really stood out to me that speaks to seniority is the fact that Manny Diaz was more willing to give Zach McCloud that many snaps at defensive end, a position he's never played before, and decided that it would be better to give him those snaps instead of let our young guys get valuable snaps in a bowl game. That to me was almost kind of like the icing on the cake when I consider what we have in terms of seniority. I believe that if it's something Diaz recognizes, it's only going to help the team and it's only going to help his career. I got to see him do it, though. I'm worried that next year will come around and all of a sudden we're going to see less talented starters with lower upside than the guys that are behind them.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agree. Guys, how are we feeling about the Derek King situation moving forward?
Yeah, I'll jump to that in a second, but first I kind of want to respond a little bit to Ross. So,
go for it.
The seniority thing, with McCloud, okay, in my eyes, I can get behind that if McCloud said that he is going to come back next year and play defensive end. Then it makes sense to me that they gave him kind of an audition in the bowl game. But if that's not the case, then yeah, I agree. Those snaps should have gone to Chance Williams, and also if you look at the linebacker snaps, Corey Flagg played a lot more than he had before, and we actually didn't even start Gervin Hall today in the last game, and Amari didn't play, so we actually started a true freshman at safety. So there are some wrinkles of not using seniority, but then there definitely is. But again, I think if McCloud told Manny he's going to come back and play defensive end because that's where he thinks he'll be successful, then I can understand that. But on to King, obviously it sucks. We're all wishing the best for him, hoping that he can recover. Not hoping he will recover, but hoping he can recover quickly. But to me, it doesn't matter. He's our guy next year. Whenever he's ready, he's our guy. I don't see Kosi, TVD, and Garcia being elite enough to take King's job. That's just, and it's not just necessarily based off of skill. We all know Derek King is a leader that we haven't had at Miami for a long time. And that speaks a ton. He is fixing a lot of the culture problems that I think that this team's had, in my opinion. And to be able to have him back, even if he's rehabbing for next year, is going to be a huge blessing for this program.
I agree, dude. That leadership was present and face. I mean, it was the face of the entire team at times. I mean, we saw when the defense wouldn't give us what we needed out of them when we watched Derek King put that entire offensive unit on his back. I mean, the leadership, and I'm glad you pointed it out, dude. That's almost as valuable as what he does on the field. That leadership in the locker room, that leadership in the QB room, that leadership on the sidelines. Just having that guy be part of the Miami Hurricanes makes us a better football team just in general.
I would argue it's even more valuable than what he does on the field.
Yeah.
Because he has an opportunity to affect all 85 scholarship players.
And that's the guy we want to affect. I mean, do you want anybody else but him talking to our freshmen? If there's going to be anybody talking to him, I want it to be Derek King. That's the guy I want them getting their leadership and their advice from, honestly.
Exactly.
No, it's going to be very interesting ultimately at the end of the season, at the end of, the off season, spring practice, fall practice, who is going to be under center at quarterback. If N'Kosi Perry does choose to stay, or if he wants to have a full season starting at another program. These are going to be some tough talks for the staff. I'm not going to lie, Manny Diaz really has his hands full this offseason. How does he respond? Once again, and I know this is a common question, but do you guys think we'll see any changes defensively? And how realistic are these changes?
I can guarantee you we will see at least one change defensively, at least. And in my opinion, we should just wipe the slate. I think we should get rid of everybody. Everyone knows Stroud has a history with health issues. And then getting COVID made these issues come up again, some of them. In my opinion, if DeMarcus Van Dyke is a good cornerback coach, and I don't know the answer to that, I would swap him and Stroud's roles, move Stroud to recruiting coordinator so he's not as taxed in terms of, his health stuff, and move DVD to corner coach because he can recruit, and he can recruit very, very well. But again, only if that makes sense. If he is a good coach. I know he's coached corners for 1 year, and he was a defensive coordinator, not defensive analyst coordinator, whatever they call it, for us for a year as well. But if not, you put Stroud in some other recruiting role or some other analyst role. But other than that, I think we just need to wipe the slate clean. There's obviously a couple of names that everyone's mentioned: Randy Shannon at DC, Charlie Strong at DC, Freeman from Cincinnati.
Yep.
But I think one of the most underrated signings that we could have is Jim Leavitt from FAU. And there's two reasons for that. One, he's shown that he's a very, very good coordinator. And two, his current D-line coach is Kevin Patrick.
Yep.
And I think he would bring him to Miami. And I think those two guys would be huge gets for this program.
That would be great. Kevin Patrick, a defensive line or outside linebackers coach, which is his current title at Florida.
Right.
Jim Leavitt as our defensive coordinator coach. There was some person that stated he was too old. I think anything is better. I don't care about age in this matter. Anything is better than what we've had with Blake Baker. Anything is better. And a new defensive scheme coming in would be tremendous for this program with the athletes we have. Get rid of our quarterback coach, Mike Rumph. Preferably bring in someone who's like known to be a good recruiter is the first thing I would look at. You know, just go to like literally Pittsburgh's defensive back coach. I don't know his name, but he was one of the top in the ACC. I don't know if that has to do with the amount of signings he had because he had like 6. But like, just literally get a good recruiter in because like we're off in that department. Whoever's in charge of it. Coach Banda, do you guys give him the green light to leave or stay another year?
I would tell him to.
I know Max feels the same way I do.
I'm not going to fire the guy. I'm going to tell him to take the job, you know,
Right.
and that's what Manny should do. He should say, you know, you should take that job because if you take the job, then you're going to be looking for another.
What alarms me about Manny Diaz, guys, is why does it take for literally the program to suffer one of the worst losses in program history to even get attention with your defensive staff? Why do things need to go so extreme for it to even get noticed that I need to make changes? Why?
To me, it would have been a bit too much to get a whole new off staff and defensive staff in the same season.
Right.
So, in my opinion, and I don't have any inside source on this, he probably told Blake Baker, again, don't know if this is true, next season is going to be your tryout. You either prove it or you don't. If you do, you stay. If you don't, you're getting canned. Because I just think it's way too much to ask to bring in 2 whole different staffs on offense and defense, and you had to overhaul that offensive staff last year. I mean, there was no questions asked in that regard.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's my opinion. I think it would have been too much to do it. And maybe, you know, obviously Blake Baker's Manny's friend, so maybe he said, hey, you know, this is your tryout year. If you show me that you're good enough to continue this job, then hey, let's do it. But if not, then here's the door. And in my opinion, the door is open.
And by the way, like Manny could have like made better decisions if he wanted to hiring these people. He hired Dan Enos. He hired Coach Baker. He didn't have to hire them whatsoever. There are plenty of names we could have talked about that could have filled in those roles easily. This is what happens when you make bad decisions. When you bring in people you've never worked with before offensively, and then you bring in your students defensively who you're very proud of their career and you give them an opportunity they don't deserve. Let's be real. Because Blake Baker at Louisiana Tech, he did all right. Nothing crazy, nothing out of the ordinary. Ross, what do you think about all this?
Well, one theory that I've had when it comes to the defensive side of the ball is that Manny Diaz himself is a defensive coordinator, as we all know. He experienced quite a few ups and downs as a defensive coordinator, but ultimately sticking to what he did and what he knew best got him a head coaching job. And I always wonder if he might have a little sympathy, empathy, whatever you want to call into it, but some of these guys, especially his buddies like Baker, who, you know, are learning on the power, basically learning on the job in the Power 5, essentially.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I could kind of see where Diaz would just say, hey, you know, I've made some big mistakes, but I know I can get them right. And I know I can make something better out of it. And that could be something that I definitely could see at play right now, man.
I would love to get Cincinnati's defensive coordinator, Freeman. I would love it. I think it would be a great hire. But he's from Cincinnati. I don't know if he has ties to Miami per se. He's familiar with the area. You know, usually that Cincinnati area, you're looking at a Big Ten position. It just makes sense for recruiting. I don't know. It's going to be a very curious offseason, guys. I mean, it really is what's going to happen moving forward. There's a lot of question marks, and I completely agree. I think there will be changes, but, you know, how many changes? What's going to happen? Why are we waiting so long? Why, you know, are we waiting till all the bowl games end, you know, to see what's happening? My biggest fear is if, like, there's not really a lot of changes. And we're just kind of stuck.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, that's a big fear. Why we're not doing it now, to me, is a couple things. Maybe we're waiting for the bowl games to end, right, to see who becomes available. Maybe we're waiting till we get these guys in the transfer portal before we make changes, right? The same way that we did in the signing class. We got to make sure these guys are signed before we make any changes. Um, and to go on Freeman at Cincinnati, in my opinion, that's the best hire, but it's the most unrealistic hire, in my opinion. And I say that because they know that Fickle is going to get a better job in the very, very near future. He's already been offered better jobs. And they want Freeman to take over Cincinnati. And they've continually increased his pay. And I can almost guarantee you they're telling him, hey, this job's yours. Just wait out another year or maybe two maximum. So I would love to have Freeman. I think that would be a home run hire, no questions asked. I just don't think it's very realistic, unfortunately. So that's kind of my 2 cents on that. But again, that's why I look at like a Jim Levitt at FAU. It's more realistic, right? He's going from FAU to Miami, but he has great experience. So it'll be interesting. And I agree, Paul. I think the fear for all of us is there's not going to be enough changes, or the changes aren't going to be the right changes. There's been a lot of smoke about basically everyone on defense getting fired except for Blake Baker. And to me, I'm okay with that if Blake Baker gets demoted, right? If he's the only one that stays, but is no longer the defensive coordinator, then I can understand it. Then Manny's realized, this is my buddy. I want him to get the experience, but he's not ready to be a coordinator. That's the only thing that I could get behind. If not, everybody should go.
Have you guys ever seen that in a college football program? If the defensive coordinator gets demoted and is changed to a lower position? Welcome to the University of Miami if that does happen.
I've seen it where guys get the co-defensive coordinator title, but I've never seen them actually take it, and go from DC to maybe a position coach role strictly. I don't know if I've seen that.
Or
Well, yeah, I mean, he could be, co-defensive coordinator and learn under the new defensive coordinator while also coaching the linebackers. I'm not saying that he would lose the full coordinator title. But again, for whatever reason, I just don't think Manny's ready to fire Blake Baker, which to me is just astounding. It just blows me away. But everybody else, I think Banda goes to Utah State. I think he takes Packy with him. Rump's getting fired if he's not fired already, and Stroud probably steps down / retires.
Wow. I just hope, who would want to be under a staff with Blake Baker as defensive coordinator? Because usually people join staffs if there's a key leader at defensive coordinator, key head coach. I don't know. It's going to be a lot of young up and coming coaches.
And the sell on that would be, hey, I know that Blake Baker's the coordinator, but I'm the CEO and I run this team. That would be the only way Manny could pitch to these position coaches. I agree though. It's a terrible sell. It's like Banda recruiting the corners. Why is he recruiting a coach or recruiting players that he's not coaching? Why would a high school kid want to go to a school where he doesn't have a relationship with his position coach? That makes no sense to me. If I were a kid getting recruited as a cornerback, but didn't talk to him very much, and I was primarily talking to the safeties coach, I wouldn't want to go to that school. It's a recipe for disaster. So again, is Rum's fault? No, it's not Rum's fault to that extent, because at the end of the day, that's not the job that they gave him, and they being Banda, Baker, and Manny Diaz. So in terms of the cornerbacks recruiting, it's not fully on Rumph, guys. And and that's an interesting thing, because now you're looking at blaming the other guys, and whose fault really is it? Technically, it's all Manny Diaz's fault because he's the one overseeing it all.
All right, so let's figure this out, guys. 2020 season, we got Alabama, Michigan State, App State. Those are our first 3 non-conference games. We got North Carolina. We're playing North Carolina State at home, North Carolina away. Got our traditional ACC coastal schedule. How can the Miami Hurricanes be successful next year and qualify for the Orange Bowl? What steps do we need to take, and who do we need to bring in? We'll start with guys we need to bring in from the transfer portal, and then we'll move our way to our staff.
Man, the way I see it, man, is if we're going to be making some genuine, true strides, we have to add genuine, true talent in the places that need it the most. To me, I don't see how we go forward, especially against a team like Bama or even against a team like Michigan State, with trying to just get by with some of these young guys and just hope for the best. It's where I want those guys to be able to develop while we have them on the field, while adding some legit talent that can actually, make a difference in a game from week one right away. One major point, honestly, I want to point out here that I think is going to be truly vital for this offense, and it's Derek King developing a more consistent deep pass. We saw what Perry coming in and doing that deep pass could do, and we saw specifically really what it did for the power run game. Look at the game that Cam Harris had when we were able to open things up a little more. That power run game is always going to be a part of the University of Miami, and it's something that I don't ever want to deny. I want to make sure that we keep feeding that and do it to its best ability. Chaney, Rooster, those guys, can do a little bit of everything. But that power run game is going to be vital. That deep pass is something that King really needs to work on. And if we want to especially compete with a team like Bama, we have to put points on the board. We're not going to just shut them down defensively or just stop them. We have to be able to put points on the board. And to do so, we have to keep their defense honest and keep them guarding the pass and the run.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think, we did see a different element with Kosi. He's a gunslinger. He's known for his deep ball, So the things that I saw from Kosi that were a lot better than last year is his pocket presence. There was that one sack where he didn't see a guy blitzing off the edge. But his pocket presence was something that lacked severely the past two seasons. Being able to see pressure coming, being able to move in the pocket, and prolong plays. And that's something that, in my opinion, Derek's really been able to help him with, because he's seen what a successful, guy in terms of pocket presence looks like. But again, going back to your question, Paul, I think, like I said earlier, defensive staff needs to be overhauled. If we want to be successful, go look at every top team's staff. They've got home run hire after home run hire after home run hire. And this isn't just on Manny Diaz. This is on the BOT. This is on Blake James. They have to open their checkbooks to go and get. And if Manny's not willing to do it, they need to either force him to do it, or he's going to have to do the same thing Rick did and step away. If you want to be able to be a successful program, you've got to get the best players and you got to get the best staff. And so that's where it starts. That's where it has to start. We have an elite offensive staff, the best in the country, top 10, probably, as long as it's top 25, that's pretty good for me. Because we have a lot of, South Florida talent, which is always, pretty good, as we know. But I think we have to have a top 15, top 25 in terms of the guys that we have on defensive staff on this program. And right now, I don't even think we have a top 50 defensive staff, maybe even further down the line than that. So I think it starts with that. You got guys like Freeman who can make a lot out of nothing. I mean, look at the guys Cincinnati has on their roster. They don't have the talent that we have, and look how good their defense is. So it starts there for me. I don't expect to compete with Alabama next year. We're not there yet, okay? And that's fine with me. A successful season next year starts right now. Who can we get as a defensive staff that's going to take us to the next level? You know, can we have a similar game that we had against Clemson without all of the penalties? It would look a lot better to me against Bama, right? Can we have a closer game against North Carolina? And can we win the Michigan State game, the Appalachian State game, and run the table in the ACC? That, to me, is a successful season. If we lose by a little bit to a North Carolina team that is going to be significantly better next year than they were this year, and we lose to Bama, and we go to a good bowl game and we win that bowl game, that's a very successful season in my eyes. But again, it starts with making the very important changes on defense. And I'm not talking about just firing Baker, okay? If you fire Baker and bring in another Blake Baker, you might as well not have fired him. You can't go get another guy to be a yes man. You can't get a guy that's going to come in and run Manny's defense. Manny has to trust his hire to run the defense. And if he doesn't do that, then what's the point in hiring him? If you're not going to, think of it this way, right? If you hire a guy to your company, but you don't trust him to do the job, then what's the point in hiring him? And to me, if Manny does not let a new defensive coordinator run his defense, then he doesn't trust the guy enough. So it starts with that.
That's where we need Manny to go to that CEO kind of a role, where we need him to just oversee. He doesn't need to be the defensive coordinator anymore. And Max, you nailed it, dude. We will know right away what Diaz's plan on defense is by either keeping Baker or by the hire he makes. If he goes out and he spends money and he gets a guy with a proven system, we could see a schematic change on defense, and that is what we need. The scheme is broken. It needs to change. I just hope that Manny can truly take his hands off of the defense and, like you said, trust the guy that he would normally hire. If we don't see, my prediction is, if we don't see Baker fired within a week of the bowl game, he's probably going to be our DC next year.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. What's the deadline for Blake Baker moving forward, or any coach on the staff as well? It's going to be a crazy offseason, very interesting one. Man, it scares me because I see other teams like everybody knows Alabama is way ahead of us. I mean, but North Carolina, they whooped our ass. They kicked our ass. How do we even come back from that? Their quarterback's going to be a junior. Their offensive coordinator's coming back. Their defensive coordinator's coming back. They're going to bring in guys from the transfer portal. We mentioned one before this show that doesn't like us very much. What if he goes to North Carolina? So other teams are getting better. Miami, are we getting better? I don't know. I really don't think so. I really don't. Anyways,
I think talent-wise we are, in terms of the recruiting class that we've pulled in.
This is a good class, but developing them is the key.
100%. And again, it starts with the staff.
And keeping, the same staff defensively, I don't think we're going to develop.
I worry that Manny Diaz is hard-headed and that he's going to just say, my defense turned me into the head coach of the University of Miami, and it's going to stay that way while I'm here. And that's my biggest worry, is that he truly just doesn't look in the mirror and realizes the hard truth.
Anything else we want to add, guys, before we wrap up the 2020 year?
I'll say this. This is my statement. If Manny Diaz does not make the decisions that he needs to make in the near future, I think he and Blake James are going to go down together, because Blake James did not hire Alonzo Highsmith because Alonzo Highsmith did not want to be a yes man to Manny Diaz. They hired Ed Reed because he's a lot more relaxed and he doesn't want to work as much. He just wants to chill, be the face of the program. All the recruits know who he is. They don't know who Alonzo Highsmith is. That's the save face hire out of Blake James. But if he really wanted to see a big difference in this program, he knows he should have hired Alonzo Highsmith. So I think they either ride off together and do great here, or both of them go at the same time. Paul, we talked about before the show, Larinaga is sinking right now.
Yeah.
So if
Programs
he doesn't, right? So the basketball program's in a bad state. The football program is in a very fragile state. You know, they've got the baseball program. They got the money, all the fundraising money. That's all Blake James has right now. Those are the only two things he has. And I think if he doesn't make this higher work with Manny Diaz, they will go out together.
He was the AD at Maine. I don't think they have a football program.
Yep.
Yeah.
Starts from the top. Thank you guys for coming on. What a way to wrap up the 2020 year. Hope everyone watching and my guests on the show have a great year, 2021, guys. Many blessings to you and your loved ones, and always all about the you.